everyone, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Katie, and today I am doing the Christian romance tag. So I am wearing my very pink shirt here today because it's a romance book tag, so why not? So this tag was created by my lovely friend Oshina, and I will link her channel down below. But I'm just so excited because I'm glad she tagged me so I could see it, because I did have a video planned for today, but I was like, you know what? Let's just bump that to Thursday and let's go ahead and do this tag because my internet has been very spotty the past 24 hours. So I'm hoping that this tag is nice and short so it'll be easy to edit and easy to get up. Hopefully it'll get up today because, yeah, as I said, my internet has not been great this past 24 hours. Okay, so this is a fun tag. I love Christian romance. It's mainly what I read, even like subgenres: romantic suspense, historical romance, fairy tale romance, pretty much everything, contemporary romance, you name it, I love it. So we are going to go ahead and have some questions. And I actually did think of another question, which I thought would have been lots of fun, but she didn't add it. Maybe I'll add that at the end or something. Okay, so the first question is, what book got you into Christian romance? So, two authors really got me into romance. I am actually really like Oshina. We both started out with secular romance. We read the stuff that we probably shouldn't have growing up, but we found the love of Christian romance and clean romance in general. And so I'm just so excited that I get to do this tag. So yes, the first authors, because I don't remember the actual book that introduced me into the Christian fiction genre, but I do remember the authors, and that was Tracy Peterson and Deanne Gist, and they are historical romance authors. They're both excellent, but I just really love them. Deanne Gist is more of a historical romance, and that's it type of author. Like, it doesn't have a lot of faith content. It's not very deep as far as I don't think there's any mysteries going on. It's just a romance, and I just enjoyed them growing up. I did reread her first book. I didn't actually enjoy it, but I think her writing got better as she went on, so I would like to reread some of her newer releases, although she hasn't written anything in 15 years, but I do absolutely love her books. And then Tracy Peterson, her books are historical romance mixed with a little bit of a backstory. It's usually the girl who's in trouble. There's this guy who usually helps her out, and I just really enjoy her books. I think they're a delight, and I will read whatever she comes out with. So the next question is, what Christian romance book changed the way you look at the romance genre? So this was one of the very first series that I ever read getting into Christian romance when I was in high school. And so this is the Royal Wedding series by Rachel Houck. It's one of my absolute favorite series of all time. I need to do a reread because I loved it so much. But yes, this series definitely had my heart from the get-go. It is a sweet contemporary romance telling of a girl who falls in love with the prince. What more do you want? It's definitely, probably, from what I'm remembering, it's a little bit Hallmark feeling, but in a good way. It's like one of those really good Hallmark movies. Not one of those cheesy, why did I watch this and suffer through it? No, this is a good Hallmark movie. So I did really enjoy these ones. These are about Susanna. Her love of her life of 12 years breaks up with her, and then she ends up meeting Prince Nathaniel on a holiday, and he doesn't expect to find the queen of his heart, which that's taken from the back of the book, but you get the gist. And yes, so this was definitely a series that, because I think before this, I think all I was reading was historical romance, Christian fiction, because I think that's all I could find at the moment. And when I found these, I think I found my first book at a thrift store or something. And so when I found these are the new covers. I have the original cover at one point. But I just really loved these books to pieces. I thought they were great. I remember there being an element of faith in these books, and just to find out the books that I love, because one of my favorite tropes is royalty tropes. where the girl falls in love with the prince and may or may not know if he's a prince or not. But just finding out that there is Christian romance like that and they're great was just a really great plus. There's also tons of books out there that just dive more deeper into life situations, and there's tons of books like that as well. But this is definitely my first deep dive into Christian romance that wasn't historical romance, because that was my first. All right, the next question is, what do you love and hate about the Christian romance? So I love that it's clean. I mean, I have struggled with things in the past of reading bad books. So just to know that I can pick up a Christian romance and not have to worry about skipping pages, not have to worry about going back to what I used to read. So I just love that. I love that when an author does add faith elements. A lot of Christian romance doesn't have faith elements. It's just clean. And so the faith elements, when they're added and done beautifully and woven into a character's life, those are my favorites. And so yeah, I really enjoy those. I also love when an author can bring comedy in with romance and not make it super cheesy. You know, it's just the perfect blend of romance and humor and fun. So I really love that. What I don't like about the genre, sometimes an author can get repetitive, especially if they have written a lot of books. Some of their books might seem very similar when they're put together. So I feel like that's something that I don't really like, because like I want to see something new. And sometimes I feel like, especially maybe in like contemporary romance, I feel like it happens a little bit more maybe, where just you only have so many situations, and so like you might be reading a book and then you'll read another one and it's very similar, and so sometimes that happens where it's almost too similar for me, and I feel like that kind of is something that I don't like. And sometimes the romances aren't realistic, and that could happen though in any romance book. If I'm being honest, it's not just Christian romance, it could be any romance book. But yes, they could be a little bit non-realistic with the romance. I also don't like where I feel like almost every single Christian romance book, you get to see the build up, you see where the romance is going, but you never see the ever after. You never see the wedding. Like 80% of the books, you never get to actually see the wedding. And like I just want to see the wedding. I want to see a little bit after they get married. Like that's what I want. And so like, yeah, that's something that I want. Not necessarily that I hate that they don't have that in there, but I'd love to see it. Next question is, what makes a 5-star read in Christian romance for me? A swoon-worthy hero. A man who is just like the perfect blend of like funny, sweet, strong, faith-filled. Not all the heroes that I love are faith-filled, but quite a few of them are. 5-star read. I give a lot of 5 stars, but I do love when faith is woven into the story with the main girl character, and it's actually done well, where it's part of the character's life, and she goes to the Lord not just with problems, but she'll go to him during the good times and the bad times. That's another thing that I actually hate in Christian romance, is when I read a book recently where a characters only went to God when they were in trouble. And it's like, no, like he's there during the good and the bad. You have to praise him and worship him and, you know, thank him during the good times as well as the bad. And so, yeah, that can get on my nerves a little bit too, when a character only goes to God when they're in trouble. And so, yeah, so that's definitely, so when faith-centered main female character who goes to the Lord for the good and the bad. And I am going to talk about one of the books that really resonates with me with a character like that. I will talk about in a few minutes, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, so definitely that. I do love slow burn romances. I do like love at first sight, because it does happen. It happens. Let's be realistic. It does happen. Like, not to everybody. Like, some people believe it's realistic that love is at first sight, but no, it's not. My mom knew that my dad was meant for her right away. I don't know if my dad did really, but my mom did. And so, yeah, so I like both. But I like kind of where they have a good connection, where they might have problems, but then they don't blow up. They figure out the problem. They go to the Lord and they figure it out and forgive each other. That's another thing that I'm coming up with a lot of hate things that I don't like in Christian romance. I don't like miscommunication. That's a big problem, especially in Christian romance, because it's like, instead of going to the Lord and saying, is this what really happened? And going to the guy asking if it really happened. No, there's some miscommunication. And that's something else that I don't like in Christian romance sometimes. It doesn't happen often, but it happens every once in a while. But just as long as I love the story from beginning to end, and if it's a book that I can't put down, like I read it within 24 to 48 hours, it's a 5-star read. If you can make me laugh or cry, it's automatically a 5-star read. A good cry. Well, I don't think I've ever had a bad cry. So if you can make me cry or laugh in a book, it's most likely going to be 5 stars, because I rarely do either one in a book. So it's definitely automatically 5 stars if that happens. Okay, so here is where we're going to talk about the book that I was talking about, where the character has a very good faith base. And the next question is, recommend a Christian romance to a newbie to the genre. So if you are new to the genre, this is one of my absolute favorite books. I love it so much. And that is In Search of a Prince by Tony Shiloh. I love this book so much. This is about a girl named Brielle, and this is a Princess Diaries retelling, kind of, where this girl lives in, I believe it's New York City. Yes, New York City. Wow, I remember more than I thought I did. So she lives in New York City, and she's a teacher, but she finds out that her grandfather is still alive, who she never met, and lives in a African island off the coast of Africa, and she is the crown princess of this island. She never knew her father. I don't think she ever knew her father. But she finds out that she is the heir to the throne. And so she's like, Mom, why did you keep this all hidden from me? And so she ends up going to the island to meet her grandfather. And it is just such a beautiful, faith-filled message in here. Brielle is one of my absolute favorite characters of all time. Just the stories. I want to go back and reread this and actually go in and highlight and annotate it, because it's so beautiful. But in this one, she goes to God for every situation, good or bad. And there's such a connection between her and God throughout the story, and I just love that. And the romance in here, it's not super romancy, if I'm being honest. It's more about her journey in becoming a queen of this country and learning the laws, learning about the people in the country and how she can help. And, come to find out, a rule of this country is she has to be married in order to become queen, and so she has to go in search of a prince. And so it's very good. I love it so much. And yeah, so if you haven't picked it up, this is a great starter to the genre. Okay, so now we're going to go into recommend a Christian romance to a romance lover. So someone who's not new to the genre. Okay, so I know which one I'm going to recommend. So this is one where I know a lot of women ask for this type of book. So we're going to recommend it. So I know a lot of people really want to see empty nesters. I know I've seen a lot of questions pop up and everything, and I really should do a recommendation video about that, because I do, at the top of my head, I know at least 2 or 3 that have like empty nesters or older protagonists. And so we're going to pick Second Time Around by Melody Carlson. This is a really great romance read. We're following a woman, I believe in her late 40s, mid 50s, and she is divorced, and she lives in this beautiful home that she built from the ground up. But then she finds out that I believe her grandmother, it's either her grandmother or her aunt, passed away, and she ends up finding out that she is inherited a small little shop in Oregon. And so she decides, you know what, I'm divorced, my kids are gone away from home, I want a new start in life. So she ends up moving here to see what she can do with the shop and see either does she want to sell it or does she want to make it into something more. And so she ends up going there. She ends up meeting someone who I believe she knew in the past. Yes, childhood crush. But her childhood crush, Grayson, ends up wanting to buy the shop to create, he wants like a mall in that area or something. And she's like, maybe I want to keep the shop and not sell it. So it's just I really enjoyed it. I love the romance in here, the storytelling, the shop, like, seeing her create the shop from the ground up, which just, well, not ground up because the shop was already there in part, but I just really enjoyed this story. It's really good. I highly recommend it if you love contemporary romances, empty nester protagonist, and it was just really sweet. The romance, I don't believe the romance was really cheesy. It was just very sweet, and they kind of become not really enemies, but just a little bit. Enemies to friends to romance. And so I just thought it was really sweet. And yeah, this is a great book to pick up. Okay, so now we are going to picking a contemporary and a historical Christian romance to recommend. So easily, it's over here somewhere, that one. I can tell by the yellow cover. My contemporary recommendation for you all is an easy one, and that is Dear Henry, Love Edith by Becca Kinzer. If you want to laugh out loud, snort out your tea, this is a great book to read. It's funny. It might be a little slapstick because there are definitely some nods to Abbott and Costello, and just fun. It's fun. It's a good time. And the ending was definitely unexpected. I really like the ending. But this is about a girl named Edith, and she ends up wanting to go on a missions trip, but she's unable to go there right away. So I think she's waiting for her visa or passport to come. So she ends up moving to this small town where her friend says she can move into her place. Well, her place, I believe, is flooded, and so she ends up having to move in with this guy. Now, no situations happen. It's a clean Christian romance. She lives on the top floor, he lives on the bottom. But they also mistake each other for an older person. So the guy, Henry, thinks she's an older lady. I mean, with the name Edith, it's most likely, maybe, an older woman. We don't know. And then she thinks he's an older guy. And so they communicate through letters, and they become friends to more. And they kind of see each other throughout the town, and they kind of fall in love with each other a little bit, even though he doesn't know that she's a girl living upstairs in his apartment. And he has like a bum knee that he's trying to fix, so he can't even go upstairs. So he has no idea who lives up there. So it's just very sweet. It's funny. I laughed out loud. I'm a very quiet laugher, so nobody could really hear me. But definitely there was some hilarious moments. The pepper scene. If you've read the pepper scene, you know it's hilarious. And there's definitely just some sweet, funny parts. And one of my other favorite things in romance books is small towns when they have just the nosy neighbors and the busybodies. They're just hilarious, and I love them so much. So yes, definitely pick it up. So I had to dive deep. I have a giant pile on my lap to get to the books that I want to recommend for historical romance. So this is a series that I loved. Okay, I do have book 1. I still need book 2 and 4 because I did have the entire series at one point, but then I ended up storing them. They got damaged, and Kristen Heitzman was so sweet. She sent me whatever was on her bookshelves, and she only had book 1, 3, and 5. I was like, that's fine. Send them over if you want to. I didn't even ask if she had any extra copies. I actually asked her for book plates because it's one of my favorite series of all time. I've reread this series at least twice. So she kindly sent me whatever she had on her shelves. And so, yeah, this series, which the ones I do have are Honors Pledge, Honors Reward, and Honors Quest. And this series, Historical Romance, this is the only series I have ever seen this. The only Christian romance I've ever seen this happen, where a romance is found not once, but twice in this series. And I don't want to spoil anything, but true love comes to this woman's life twice in one series. And I've never seen that happen before in any book series. So if you love kind of prairie life mixed with real dangers and peril, mixed with such a sweet romance, I believe there is an enemies to lovers happening in this series. But just this series, it's the Rocky Mountain Legacy series by Kristen Heitzman. It's one of my absolute favorites. So you know if it's a favorite. I rarely, if ever, reread a book or a series. You need to read this series. It is so good. I love it. And it's definitely a favorite of mine. So the next thing is to recommend a booktuber who reads/reviews Christian romance. So I have a few. I'm not going to recommend the same as Oshina did because I want to mix it up, give you a few other recommendations if you're coming from her video to mine. So for my channel, I'm going to recommend Chronicles of a Book Nerd. She has a mix of Christian romance and clean romance. So that's pretty much the majority of what she reads. So if you also want to find some really good Kindle Unlimited books and indie published books, check her out. She definitely mostly reads contemporary romance, but she is great for recommending books that you've never heard of. Or, if you're new to Kindle Unlimited or Kindle books in general, check her out. She's great. Also, check out Alicia from For the Love of Christian Fiction. She doesn't post a lot, but every time she posts, she's mostly talking about romance. She loves romance. I love her. She's such a sweet girl. I love her. And yeah, so definitely check her out. And then the next one is Tales and Treats with Tay. She has been sharing videos a lot more lately since she has come down from being a new mom. So she is posting more often, and she does read a lot of romance. So definitely check her out as well. And she also really is fairly new to Christian fiction. So definitely check her out. So yeah, so I think that's everything. Oh wait, no, I lied. There was one more question. No, there's two. I lied. Next question is swooniest male love interest in a Christian romance. Swooniest. Good question. Now I could talk about all my love interests in books, all my love boyfriends, or book boyfriends. Okay, so I think my most swooniest worthy hero in Christian romance is, and I can't believe I remember his name because you know me and names in books, they're terrible. It's Michael from The Maid of Ballymagul by Jennifer Dybel. This swoon-worthy hero, yeah, he is great. So this is actually a Cinderella retelling. And so we're following a girl named Brianna, and she works for this boarding school. And the boarding school, lady who owns it, she's kind of like the stepmother figure. And so Michael is the Prince Charming hero, and he just comes, and I believe actually his family, I think his family owns the boarding school, but the lady takes care of it. She's like the head matron or whatever you call her. But he's like the local gentry, and he ends up meeting Brianna, and just the romance, the sparks between the two characters, his just heroic acts, and just I really enjoyed his character. Yeah, so yeah. And this was my introduction to Jennifer Dybel, and just yeah, that's when we're the hero, Michael. Definitely a favorite of mine, and I would just happily reread this just to see Michael again in the story, because yes, I really did enjoy him, and I was swooning all over the place when I read it. So he's definitely one. Quincy, wow, I can't remember. I'm remembering names all over the place today. Quincy from, well, I can't find my copy right now, but Quincy from Rachel Fordham's book, Where the Road Bends. He's swoon-worthy. I love him. He's really good too. So yes, definitely some really great swoon-worthy heroes there. All right, so the next question and last question is recommend a standalone and a series. Okay, so a standalone. So I can recommend this one since it's in my hands. If you haven't read it, read it. But I will pick different books for this question. Okay, so I'm going to recommend this one, but side note, this is another swoon-worthy hero. And that is A Portrait of Emily Price by Catherine Ray. This book is a contemporary romance, and it is set partially in, can't remember what town in the US, but then it immediately moves to Italy pretty quickly. But we're following a girl named Emily, and she falls in love with an Italian man named Benito. And let me tell you, for some reason in the beginning, I thought the other guy was going to get her, just because they had the same job and stuff, but they're brothers. She ends up falling in love with Benito, and he is in America helping his aunt and uncle with their restaurant to get it back up on its feet, to kind of rejuvenate the place, redo a bunch of stuff so they can hopefully get their restaurant back in circulation. So he ends up meeting Emily, and they end up falling. This one's kind of an insta love story, but they end up getting married, and he ends up taking her back to Italy to meet his family, and it's just definitely the quintessential Italian family, for sure. His mother reminded me a lot of my grandmother. She definitely has her opinions, that's for sure. And so, but I just really enjoyed it for some reason. I don't know. I recommend it because it's a sweet contemporary romance. It has a little bit more of those family values, meeting the new family. We also don't see that a lot in romances either, is meeting the family, you know? Like, surprise, here's my wife, and surprise, you get to meet my family in Italy. So, yeah, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was sweet, and yeah, I like the family aspect, and yeah, just meeting the family for the first time in a different country, you know, going right from the beginning, learning everything there is to know about your husband's family. Really interesting, and yeah, I enjoyed it. And the series I'm going to be recommending, if you haven't read it, where have you been? You need to read it. And that is the Timeless series by Gabriel Meyer. I love this series so much. Book 3 and 4 are coming out this year, and book 5 is coming out in 2025. So I'm so excited that this series is longer than 3 books because it needs it. It needs it. It's so good. So When the Day Comes is the first book, and In This Moment is the second book. And so in this series, we're following a woman in each generation. So I believe it's going to continue that way, at least for the time being. Okay, so those are all the questions. I actually did think of one on the fly, which is kind of like my extra question, I guess. If you want to add it, go ahead and add it if you do this tag. But my question is, what is a Christian romance book that you're excited to read? Something you haven't read yet, but you're really excited to read. So, what am I excited to read? I don't know. Well, I might as well just put this series on, and that is Mountain Laurel and Shiloh by Laurie Benton. This is about a man who, his father or uncle is a plantation owner. So he ends up having to go into the business, and he doesn't want to because his family owns slaves. This is during 1793. But then he ends up meeting this woman who's a slave, and she has very great artistic talent, and he wants to blossom her talent, and maybe there's more. So I think this is going to be a romance, so I'm going to pick just these because these have been on my list since Shiloh came out. So, and that's been like 3 years. So yeah, this is on my priority list for this year, so it will happen. I am determined. Let's see how that goes. So okay, so that's my last question, because I just wanted to add it in, because I mean, it's always nice to talk about the books that you read, but what are you excited about reading too, you know? So yeah, so I thought that was a lot of fun. All right, so let me know some of your answers to these questions. If you want to do it, please tag me so I can watch your video. I'd love to watch it. All right, so I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video.